Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it. Unacceptable by any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible through the generous support of the members of KETC.
It's the dog days of August, so they left Snoopy in charge. Charlie Brennan is on assignment, not here this week, so I'm sitting in for him here in the host chair, provocateur. To my left, Lassie, Wendy Wiese, media veteran. Old Yeller, Bill McClellan from the Post-Dispatch. Rin Tin Tin, Ray Hartmann, to my left from St. Louis Magazine. And sitting in for me over there, Spuds McKenzie from the Post-Dispatch. Hey, thanks to the Gatesworth for making this happen every week. Couldn't do it without you great people over there. Once again, thank you. Well, next Tuesday, it's primary day. Man, election cycles go by pretty quickly. Big race in the county, obviously, is for county executive. And Bill, we've got Mark Mantovani, Steve Stenger up for re-election. People are saying it's a little closer than anyone imagined. How do you think it's going to go on Tuesday?
Well, I don't know. I have a friend who works for Steve Stenger, so I think, well, I like Steve Stenger. But there have been all these problems. And then Vince Schamel likes Mantovani, and I like Vince Schamel's judgment. On the other hand, Mantovani supported Eric Greitens. So I'm a picture of the undecided voter, but I think that the union turnout for the Proposition A is going to kill Mantovani, who supported Greitens.
I think that's a very interesting position. You hear these rumblings about Prop A and that there is enough support for it. So I'm thinking, I hope they have some extra security at some of these polling places. I think things could get a little heated. I hope they don't. But tempers are kind of flaring right now. I think Mark Mantovani is probably, I think he's probably going to defeat Steve Stenger.
I disagree with that because I'm for Steve Stenger, and I think he's been a good county executive, and I'm for him, period. But I think Mark Mantovani strategically could have and should have run as a Republican. And the reason I say that is, first of all, he supported not only Greitens, but Mitt Romney in 2012. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's truly a moderate Republican. The interesting thing is, if you look at how close Rick Stream came to winning 4 years ago, had Mark Mantovani kept his powder dry with as much money as he has, I think he probably could have won in the general election. And I think I think the labor turnout's going to help Steve Stenger. And again, I'm for him, but I know a lot of my liberal friends aren't. I think he is, so I'm for Stenger all the way. But I think you're wrong. I don't think it's going to be any 40-point thing like it was. I think it's going to be 7, 8 points.
You know, one thing hurting Mantovani when you handicap it is he has the endorsement of the Post-Dispatch. You know, we just haven't had a lot of luck lately.
Well,
ask Mayor Antonio Frank.
And he has the support of the American, and which is very interesting. And the fact that Stenger seems to be, he's been called out by both of those papers for his it seems to be more than sort of a personality thing that he has, not only at county government, but at City Hall and across the region as well.
Well, I do find it interesting you talk about abrasive personalities, and he mentioned that Vince Schamel endorsed him. I think Mayor Schamel was known for a little bit of an abrasive personality.
He was, but I liked him even then.
Well, yeah. And I think Stenger probably has that. The people feel that about Stenger as well. Well, so what if he's abrasive? He didn't do anything to me, because I think people end up looking, how was I affected in the last 4 years? And so I think I agree with Ray, and I think Stenger will win, and Mantovani would have had a much better chance on the Republican ticket.
Well, you know, speaking as one who voted for Rick Stream instead of Steve Stenger 4 years ago, and I will find somebody else to vote for should he win this time over Mantovani. I think there are still some hurt feelings. If that becomes votes, we'll see.
The American.
We mentioned the American. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you about Can I say about Wesley Bell, or is it?
Well, I was actually going to bring it up.
You bring it up. I'm
all
sorry.
right.
You're a provocateur. I didn't know if we had another time.
All right. The St. Louis American also endorsed Wesley Bell over Mr. McCulloch, Robert McCulloch. Any thoughts on that?
Me? Okay.
Yeah,
well, I'm
ahead.
sorry. I didn't mean to jump the gun. I got to practice better. Actually, I do. This is the first election, if it's a referendum, if you will, on Bob McCulloch since Ferguson. If you remember, Ferguson happened just a week or two after the primary last time, and I think it is properly a referendum for many people on Ferguson, on Bob McCulloch. I agree, while having been very firm in my support of Steve Stenger, I'm equally firm that I hope Wesley Bell wins against Bob McCulloch. I don't think he's going to, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I know that a lot of, again, the move-ons of the world are really out there on this, and I think Bob McCulloch is a really, from what I've been told by lawyers, is a competent, fair-minded prosecutor on all issues except that lethal combination of race and police. And
well, I think Bob.
I think he's been there too long.
Cut it in for a minute. I think Bob McCulloch is going to win easily. Wesley Bell might be a very honorable fella, and there might be some people upset about Ferguson. But Bob McCullough's reputation, I think, in the general community is really high, and I think he'll win very handily.
I think if it is a referendum on Ferguson, I'm thinking you're assuming that those all votes are going to go against Bob.
Well, I'm not
McCulloch.
assuming that at all. I said mine is. I'm not talking about anybody else's.
If it's a referendum, it very
think you're
well
right.
could get in votes.
I think McCullough's going to win too. I think it's going to be closer than people think it is. I don't think it's going to be a big walk.
And I think when you get to the people who don't have a specific pointed reason one way or the other, the notion that Wesley Bell has never tried a felony case.
That's right.
And I understand that a prosecuting attorney is a supervisory position, but the notion that you don't even have the experience of trying one, I think it works against you with a vast majority of voters. And he may not be the person to point out the difference between McCulloch and his detractors as well as somebody else could have.
Well, I just think it's interesting that McCulloch and Stenger worked together to pretty much smear Charlie Dooley's name and put a bunch of inaccurate things out there all about him in the effort of getting Stenger into office. And now this go round, the two don't want anything apparently to do with each other, aren't seen together, aren't in anybody's ads together. I just find that very interesting.
But I mean, isn't that the nature of politics?
Ain't politics green?
Yeah, that's
exactly.
exactly. Exactly.
The Post is allowed to change its mind on its endorsement. Everybody changes their mind, so perhaps they had a falling out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with the old saw about when new information comes in, I change my mind. What do? I mean, so the idea of that you're supposed to stay with your mistake. If
Well, I would have mentioned in my endorsement of Mantovani that I did endorse Stenger 4 years ago. That one little line seemed to got cut out.
It's
maybe
amazing.
on
Has
the
the Post
floor,
not even weighed in on the McCulloch race? Because that's
Not
surprising.
yet.
Not yet.
That's kind of surprising. At least the American was very clearly for Mantovani.
We're building an
Very clear
audience for this, Ray. We're going to build it right up.
I suspect, I don't know,
Yeah,
but I
maybe.
suspect the Post-Dispatch will.
It'd probably be
So
Sunday.
Pretty
Right.
late. I mean, you know.
I mean, this is only Thursday.
Yeah, no, they absolutely will. It just hasn't
I'm-
happened.
I would
Sunday
guess
paper,
they will-
big
Sunday paper.
Come on.
They will,
That's
and I
right.
would bet anything
It's a
that they'll
Sunday.
endorse
Oh,
McCulloch.
Business is business.
It's a Sunday paper thing.
By the way, the one thing about McCulloch, and I agree, he is a very competent and respected prosecutor, I said, with the exception of that one topic. But it's also the same argument I had about Dooley and about Slay, is Bob McCulloch has been prosecutor, I want to say 27 years. It's too long. Whether he's good, bad, or indifferent, it's not, we ought to have term limits for those kinds of positions. It's 27 years is too long for anybody to be in a position. And it's not a shot at him at all. It's just, I think it's too long.
All right. Well, I mentioned myself. I voted for Rick Stream 4 years ago. He almost won. Joe, the candidates, you know, Sampson and
Daniel Sampson and a gentleman named Barry.
Barry the Third.
Okay.
Low to no name recognition. How does this happen?
Well, you know, and I'm going to, like with Bill saying he was undecided, I don't know how. I sat there and kept trying to figure out, and I will give some to credence that maybe they all thought Mark Mantovani was going to run as a Republican, but in a county that has been historically Republican, that just had a Rick Stream very close race, how they didn't come up with and this is nothing against Mr. Berry or Mr. Sampson, but two neophytes, one who's not even filling out questionnaires for newspapers or responding to anything.
That's Perry.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I don't understand if it was the county GOP waiting for something else. I can't believe that the GOP has said, well, the county's not ours anymore.
I'm afraid that they look at it that way. And I
think so,
remember
too.
8 or 12 years ago when Campbell almost won, and then, like you say, 4 years ago. But I think they think it's just an uphill fight. And really, when was the last Republican county executive?
McNary.
Gene McNary.
Well, Gene McNary, but the thing
Well,
is,
Milford after.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
H.C.,
that's
that's
true.
right.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
And people, the candidates with kind of money, don't want to run when they think they might not win. You know, it's hard to get people to spend money on that.
Bill, when I grew up, fought my way up the streets of St. Louis County, it was all Republican, and everybody understands it's not that strange that it will have shifted. And I feel this. I've always felt the same way about the second district, and about the Democrats conceding up until this year the second district to whoever was Ann Wagner or to before her to
Talent.
the talent, and I don't understand it. I mean, whatever, setting aside your politics, the fact that the Republicans did not, well, as I said what I said about Mantovani running, but I mean, the Republicans had no reason to assume that this is a lost cause, and obviously they're not going to be winning in November.
I mean, I hate to ask the obvious question, but where is Rick Stream? If you came that close, was he simply not? I can understand the desire to lay low, but
He's got a job with the Veterans Administration.
Oh,
now.
all right.
And he's probably happy with what he's doing, and maybe he's done with politics, and more power to him. But I thought they could have come up, a little bit better than that. So let's move to congressional races. All right, Lacey Clay won the endorsement of the St. Louis American, which kind of surprised me. I thought they might go progressive and go with Cori Bush. Didn't happen. They're staying with Clay. Joe, I'll go to you again on this one. Hey, does Cori Bush have a chance, and are you surprised with the American endorsement?
No, and a little bit. I don't think she has a chance. I think the Clay machine has been in place a long time, and they have brought up Maria Chappelle-Nadal, someone who had been a lightning rod for publicity, had high name recognition, had carved out the Lacey Clay's not responsive to our district anymore, and he's never here. All the complaints that what I loved how the American pointed out before they endorsed him, pointed out all his weaknesses. And he still won going away. I think, and plus you also have to look at a pocket. It's the entire city that's voting. And that name recognition in those congressional races is such a hard thing to overcome, to where you're just going to say, somebody's going to say, Clay, okay. And there's a lot of that. And I mean, we like to think that everybody sits around and spends all their time studying this and analyzing it. And I think the power of the Clay name, along with the machine or whatever you want to call it, the apparatus to get the vote out, I think he will win.
I think that the Clay name is very important, very powerful. But I think the machine thing is gone, Joe. When his father was the congressman, he had Senator Bass over here, and he had a couple of aldermen over here. And the son, Lacey Clay, just doesn't have that going. And I was kidding about the Post-Dispatch endorsement, getting fourth place for Antonio French. The Clay endorsement, which meant so much, got third place for Lewis Reid. So I think Clay will win, but I think we overstate the machine.
And machine may have been the wrong word. I meant the apparatus of getting the people you need to out to the polls to actually turn out.
Well, and Joe, you mentioned the name, the Bush name. Cori Bush is going to get all 7 Republicans in the city right there.
Absolutely, right there.
But I think with Bill, I think this is going to be an interesting race. Is it
Octavio Cortez,
the race, and she came in here on behalf of Cori Bush. I think that's the X factor in this race. I don't know. I'd given up predicting things a long time ago. But the social media, kind of new age, politics on the left, if you will, is the X factor in this race, and I would not be surprised. I think she's got a really good story.
Ray, allow me to retort on that point. If social media would have been any indication, Hillary Clinton would be president, far and away. The audience on social media loves Castro, loves the democratic socialism part of it. They're all on there, but that's not necessarily translating into votes, as we've seen.
Well,
and
Tashara
once
Jones,
that happens-
Tashara Jones was in that group, and people like me badly underestimated her and thought, I don't think she's going to come close, and she almost did it.
But I mean,
I
Doc,
think-
if you
I
want
think almost beating a new candidate is different than unseating.
I think Cory
Lacey
that's
Bush
a
has a
good point,
really
too.
good story to tell, and I think it's going to be a very interesting
I think she does
race.
too. But I think what was interesting is I was kind of surprised that Dr. Suggs and that the American endorsed Clay, and then I thought that's ridiculous because they're two institutions. Dr. Suggs the American is an institution. Clay is an institution. That's the family name, and I think a lot of members. I think the only thing more interesting right now than the Republican Party is the Democratic Party. I mean, you've got this fight for the soul. There were reports this week. I'm not sure whether they were confirmed or not, but that President Obama is really reluctant when it comes to endorsing people like Cortez, and as over the mainstream Democratic Party, right?
Right.
And so I could see where I think this is just that moment right before everything really changes.
Well,
And
all I can say is when I think of great African American leaders in our community in its history, I would put Donald Suggs up there, but I'd link him with Bill Clay, the senior,
Yeah.
not his son. And right, so that would
and
be
that's
my-
why the door.
my
I mean, the
bit.
door is open.
That's how we have a little difference.
We
of
might be
opinion.
surprised.
No, and
Yeah.
I think that it would not surprise me if the Post-Dispatch endorsed Cory Bush. I just think that's about where we're at right now.
It would surprise me.
All right, okay. All right. Well, we got another congressional race. Ann Wagner looks like she might be actually facing a formidable challenge. Mark Osmak, Court Van Ostrand. I will say that I think the gentleman's name is Bob Merriman, and then Bill Haas is also running too. But Osmak just got a endorsement by Tammy Duckworth in Illinois, a sitting congressman in Hawaii. They were both veterans like Osmak is. Wendy, what do you think?
I think that Ann Wagner probably turned a lot of people off with her whole Donald Trump, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. And the Trump voters have long memories. I think we have established that. But she has joined the party, and I think that she's she and Marco Rubio are working on updating the Social Security system, and of course that's a lively discussion in politics today. And so I think she's got a great deal of support and certainly a lot of name recognition. I think she's going to be just fine.
I actually, well, first of all, I think Court Van Ostrand is, Chris, I'm going to blow it for him. I think he's probably the likely person to win that race, and is a really solid young guy. I think would make a really good congressman. And I think that Ann Wagner is the classic example in this year's cycle of a vulnerable Republican because of being in a metropolitan area, suburban district. Those are the folks that the Republican Party are justly worried about because of the sad state of the presidency. And so I actually think, and normally she wouldn't be vulnerable. I always thought that, as I said earlier, that the Democrats shouldn't have conceded it before. But this year, I think Court Van Ostrand, or whoever gets a nomination, has a very real chance to win it.
I think it's a really uphill struggle for a Democrat in that district, Ray. And
we'll see.
I think Ann Wagner is a popular congressman, and she's a strong campaigner. So I think that she's going to handle it pretty easily.
She'll win the primary. That's for sure.
I think when it comes to these races, what we do is we look at maybe the point spread, to put it on sports terms, of these races will be closer or smaller than they used to be. You mentioned about Clay when you said he's got an opponent. The old man would have not had an opponent.
Right.
That would have just, that was it. So, I mean, there would have been no opponent.
Right.
So I think what we see is a change, but then to take that and say, oh, they're going to win, I think when it all shakes loose, you're going to have Ann Wagner and you're going to have Lacey Clay, and their incumbency is going to carry them. Will they be closer races than Republicans and Democrats in those districts we're used to? Maybe, but I still think they win.
I will say this about Wagner's district, the 2nd congressional district. It changed a few years back and enveloped my neighborhood. And it kind of stretched south, and we were having a discussion about Watson Road before the show. So it kind of stretches down. It picked up labor. It picked up people in labor, and it picked up more minority voters. Not a lot.
It picked up some extreme voters,
yeah,
too.
well,
And
exactly.
look what Trump has done in terms of the labor movement. I mean, you've got a lot of Trump supporters in the labor movement.
Oh, there's people working against Prop A who are saying their biggest supporters are Trump backers.
See, I think
So, I mean, the idea that somehow that the whole hard hat or the trades, the construction workers for Reagan, they're still for real. That's a real issue. So I don't think you can say because Prop A is going to turn out in this election, it may be, but when it comes November.
Yes.
Speaking of which, what do you think about Prop A's?
Well,
Alvin?
what you made a great point, because what I was going to say with Prop A is, all right, you used to think like, man, the only labor people vote Democratic. Like, where were all these people at in November 2 years ago? But you're exactly right, and I've said that too.
1980.
Look, these a lot of those absolutely not on Prop A voted, I think, for Greitens, who was a Prop A guy, and
Right.
Donald Trump, who, say what you want to about him, not a friend of labor. So it's interesting. Boy, that's an interesting dichotomy. And you talk about, local politics. That's it right
Well,
there.
do you think that Prop A is going to go down?
Oh, no, I think Prop A will win 60% of the vote.
Okay.
Or no will win 60%.
That's right.
of the vote.
Let's hope so. I mean, I'm
you
certainly
mean
for
no,
that.
no, vote, right.
Yeah, vote no. No will get 60.
Against right to work.
Yeah.
Right, again, and
Of
I
course.
think you're right. I think Joe's analysis is pretty spot on, though. That it's just going to be interesting. This is just a year that I think could defy the conventional analysis that we've all been doing for so long. It's really a question of degree, but you're probably right.
Well, I think people forget Ronald Reagan became president in good part by getting almost all of union labor to back him. And I don't think the Republicans have ever let go of a good chunk of that. The more highly visible, the more public statement sides of the unions, of course, they endorse their Democratic candidates, and then the Republicans, the construction workers, the truck drivers, they go out and vote for whoever they want to. It's that simple. They don't care who the union endorsed. Pay my dues, protect my job.
How American.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of America's team, this guy here. Oh, New Year's Eve, 1967, they lost to the Packers in the Ice Bowl. Broke
Yes.
my heart. Been a Cowboys fan ever since. Really kind of like Jerry Jones. I think he went a little too far with the toe on the line, demanding that everybody be out there, no protest, you might be thrown off the team, cut, whatever. Our own Ezekiel Elliott from St. Louis said, we're America's team, and we stand up for the national anthem, and he's got quite a little backlash, I think, from mostly, black fans of the Cowboys and black Americans. I think some of it is due his way. I think he could have very easily said, like, look, the owner told me I got to be out there. Why defend the preface? Because a lot of owners, a lot of people in the NFL think Jerry Jones went a little bit too far. I throw it out there to the table. Was Ezekiel out of line? What do you guys think?
How can you be out of line expressing your opinion about it?
Well, I think he
And
has.
what was out of line about it?
No. What I'm saying is he's got a right to his opinion, but people have a problem with the way he approached it.
Is he being called a Tom? Is he being referred to as a Tom?
Or as one commentator called him, a lemonade-serving house Negro. I think both of those are way out of line, but that's the kind of
But
response.
see, this is, and before everybody calls in and talks about my white privilege, I acknowledge it. I apologize for it. I am sorry, mea culpa. However, to me, there was always something fascinating about the women's movement that told me from the time I was a little girl that I could be anything I wanted to be. I could be an astronaut. I could be a firefighter. I could be a broadcaster. I could be a mom, as long as I voted the way they wanted me to vote. And I think that's kind of self-defeating and contradictory. If I want to veer to the right, that's my right too. If I want to veer to the left, that's my right. And so I feel the same way about Ezekiel. It's his God-given right, with no offense to the atheists out there, as an American to say, and I know that I'm going to get lambasted, so just call
and Dak
now.
Prescott got the same grief.
no,
He's not
no,
from St.
no,
Louis.
no,
but
no.
Right.
I was
he got
going
the
to throw
same
in
grief
Yeah.
by also backing
Right. It was
Jerry
not
Jones.
just Ezekiel Elliott. It was Dak Prescott too.
I don't have a problem with Ezekiel Elliott expressing his point of view. I happen to disagree with the whole talk about the faux outrage. This is Donald Trump has been very successful at keeping this issue alive for a full year past its normal lifetime. This was a brief protest about what African Americans consider violence by police against black people. And a lot of people say, oh, they're millionaires, billionaires. One of the defining characteristics of that concern is it doesn't matter whether you're poor, middle class, or making $1 million or $1 billion. The police violence, as it is considered, is an issue across the board.
I get that,
and
Ray,
I think
but
that
this is
making
really
a
this
stand,
this thing with the Cowboys
Right.
is not about Donald Trump. Now, what Jerry Jones said, and the toll on the line may be, but what is going on right now,
Right.
and these kind of the debate that's going on is,
Right.
hey, dude, look, no matter how you feel about it, a lot of black people felt like you kind of put other black people on Front Street, and they don't appreciate that. It really doesn't have a lot to do with Donald Trump.
You don't think this has anything to do with the fact that the NFL is telling Jerry Jones to shut
and told him
up.
to be quiet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
so
I'm telling you that none of this would be I'm not trying to make anything about Trump. The fact is, this is his issue. It was 2 years ago or a year ago, whatever it
Ray,
was.
people
it's
stopped
over.
watching and going to the games
Because
as
of
a
him.
Well,
I mean,
Oh,
he made a big thing.
I think there were a lot of people upset. I'm not me one of them, but I don't think this is all Trump.
No.
I mean,
all right,
Trump-
we got to go. We got to go to letters. Why can't people live and let live? I agree with Ray that people use religion to back up their prejudices. That from Joni Caro of St. Louis. About the Uber Lyft driver. Did he cross into Illinois, which does not have a one-party consent law? Philip Ball of Florissant. Hey, good letter. You too can write to Donnybrook, care of KETC, 3655 Olive Boulevard, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108, or send one to letters@ketc.org. Hey, it's Wendy and I on your turn, so send us a tweet at hashtag Donnybrook, STL. Thank you, Joe Holleman, for sitting in. Charlie will be back next week. Enjoy the rest of this hot summer. It's almost fall. See you guys next week.
Donnybrook is made possible through the generous support of the members of KETC.